Hey everybody, and welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to finish up mounting these seats in the Nova. I'm going to go ahead and bolt them in and support the back of the driver's seat. Welcome to the Keefer's Hot Rod Shop YouTube channel. I'm Nick Keefer. Hey guys, and welcome back. So you might remember from the previous video when we made the brackets for mounting these seats and started the install. This time I'm going to go ahead and finally set them in place, support the back, drill a bunch of bolt holes, and get them secured in the car. So I had the owner of the car come in one more time to try the seat out again just to make sure it's still in the perfect position, and it was right on the money. He liked it just as much as the first time. So what I did is I went ahead and while he's sitting in the seat, happy with the position, I went ahead and I marked with the Sharpie through those holes onto the seat right where it needs to be. I will be drilling the holes in that location, but what I'm also going to need to do is make sure the seat is level and straighten the car so not facing left or right. And then I'm going to actually measure where these holes end up on the actual seat itself, make sure they're all about the same between both sides of both seats, and then go ahead and drill those holes. All right, so I went ahead and pulled the covers off the seats, and I've got them lined up in the car here. So you can see the straight edge. I've been working on lining these seats up so that they're facing in the same direction. I've also been measuring from the back of the plate on the outside plates to the back corner of the seat, just making sure they're the same on both sides. And after I go ahead and make sure everything's straight this way, I'll make sure they're not leaned in or out, and make sure they're parallel and straight up. And then I'll work on marking the holes just with a Sharpie. And then I'll go ahead, pull the seats out, measure those holes, make sure they're really similar, if not exactly the same, on all of the seats. Then I'll be ready to go ahead and start drilling holes. So I've been working on lining these seats up parallel in the car. Once again, I've got the straight edge laying here. If we look down the seats, you can see they're all nice and parallel in pretty much every direction. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to start marking the holes. So I already have the opposite, the outside, marked for the outers here, but I want to go ahead and mark the outside on this side. And then next what I'll do is go ahead and mark the inside. As far as the inside goes, this seat, the inside is up a little bit, and I think it's just on that weld. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off of the measurements for this seat. I like how this one's sitting, so I'll go ahead and mark it. And also you could probably see I've got these pieces of tape just kind of marking where everything lines up against the front of those tabs. All right, so I've gone ahead and pulled the seats out of the car and brought them over here to the bench, and what I'm working on right now is just measuring those marks that I made in comparison to some of the features of the seat. Specifically, I'm comparing their position to the back corner and front corner of the seat, and I'm also measuring the distance of the marks from the bottom surfaces of the seat, just to compare them both side to side and inside and out. And so once I get all these measurements together and compare them side to side and inside out, what I'll do from there is go ahead and decide exactly where I want those holes to keep the seats exactly where I want them and nice and even all the way across the car, and then go ahead and we'll start drilling them in the seats. All right, and just to show you exactly what I'm doing here, I've got the passenger seat sitting on this piece of cardboard on the floor here, and this is the outside of the passenger seat, and I'm comparing it with the outside of the driver's seat, which I have on the workbench. And if you just kind of look at how I'm measuring this, you can see, for instance, from that front tip of the seat, this hole's 6 3/4 of an inch from the front, and then this one's 13 3/4. Comparatively, I'm seeing the same dimension on this seat, so that looks good. Otherwise, I'm measuring kind of the height of these holes, you know, so you can see this one is just a touch over an inch on the center line, and then this one is looking kind of more like 1 1/16. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is raising this to 1 1/16 and treating this one in the same manner, just to make sure everything's nice and even, because I know those plates are nice and even in the car. And once I'm happy with the marked location for the hole, I'll go ahead and take this pointed drift, put it exactly where I need the hole to be, and just go ahead and make a dimple there to start the pilot hole. I'll go ahead and make a little dimple in this one too. And then I'll go ahead and measure and make sure those dimples are right where I need them. It's looking good. All right, so after poking a couple of those dimples and starting some little pilot hole dimples, I went ahead and I brought the seats back over to the car, and I've got them clamped in, and you can kind of see how I've got that stuff lined up. So this one I adjusted, if you can see, I adjusted the dimple down in the that black Sharpie dot just a bit, because I wanted to lean this seat back just a touch more than it was to get it parallel with the other seat. It just needed to go back just a touch more from where that mark was. And what I'm wanting to do at this point is, since I'm kind of going off of these outer plates to position the seats in the inner plates, I'm just going to go ahead and leave these clamped and go ahead and drill my holes going through the outside here into the seat. And what that'll do is it'll ensure that my bolt spacing is perfect. Unfortunately, I can't do that on the inside. I just couldn't fit a drill in there. But I'm going to go ahead and just do it on the outside here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and use this 3/8 bit and just kind of pimple it through that plate and carefully drill into the seat here. And I just want to periodically make sure the dimple in the middle hasn't moved out of place. It's looking good. Alright, nice. So now what I'm going to do, just to keep that in place, is I'm going to go ahead and stick a 3/8 bolt through there. Just snug it up a little bit and move on to that rear hole. Just make sure I'm still centered up. Everything's dimensional. It's looking great. Alright, I can stick a bolt in here too, just to keep everything in place while I mess around with the other seat. Nice. Alright, and I'll also poke these holes on the outside, on the driver's side as well. It's looking good. Checking all my dimensions visually here. And I can also keep an eye on this tape line. It's all looking good. I'll go ahead and install this bolt. Now I can begin on the rear hole of this plate. Go ahead and make sure the bolt fits in there nicely. It's looking good. Cool. Got the seat bottoms halfway mounted. Alright, so I pulled the driver's seat back out of the car and I'm working on drilling the inner holes. So I've already got the 1/8 pilot holes drilled and I'm just kind of starting on the 1/4 inch holes now. And one thing about aluminum is, for some reason, bits will walk even in a pilot hole quite a bit. So you just want to keep an eye on your dimensions. These are supposed to be 7 inches apart, so I'm just going to keep measuring. And what I'm going to do is, I've gone from 1/8 to 1/4, then I'm going to go to 5/16 and 3/8. Since I don't have the mounting plates to act as a template for the inside, I'm just going to have to do it like that to keep the holes centered. If you can see, these are a little off center, but that's on purpose. I've just kind of been adjusting the placement of the hole as I go from 1/8 inch to 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these 1/4 inch holes and then step up through the sizes. Go ahead and just measure that spacing, and that's 7 inches on the money. Cool. Another thing I want to do before I step up to the next drill size is just to go ahead and also measure this height. I just want to keep that in check as I step through the holes, because at this point I can kind of move those holes around a little bit if needed. Looking good. Stepping up to the final 3/8 size next. Alright, cool. Got the holes up to final size. And I'll just go ahead and make sure they're where they need to be. That looks nice. That looks good as well. And they're spaced appropriately too. Great. For a final touch, I want to just go ahead and deburr these also. Looking awesome. All right, so next I want to go ahead and check the fitment in the car. All right, let's go ahead and bolt this guy in, make sure it fits. Cool, bolting perfectly. Now I've got the passenger seat pulled out, and I've made a couple marks where the holes need to be. So I'm going to go ahead and dimple those and start going through the bit sizes. Alright, now that I've made the dimples, I'm just kind of making the final measurements to make sure these holes are right where I need them. Alright, let's start with the 1/8. On the 1/4 inch. All right, looking good. Nice and centered. Looking good. Now let's finish off with a 3/8. Now let's go ahead and deburr these holes. Looking nice. Now let's go ahead and fit it up in the car. All right, let's go ahead and put some bolts to the outside plates. And we'll secure those on with some nuts. Next, we'll go ahead and secure the inside as well. All right, cool, all bolted in. All right, so both seats are bolted all the way in the car at the bottoms. Next is going to be mounting the seat backs, but let's check these guys out. Got them nice and parallel. For final installation, I'm going to be using grade 8 hardware with some nylock nuts, but I don't want to use those nylocks up for mock-up. So these will hold them in nicely for the mock-up here. These are looking great. They are nice and parallel. See through the belt holes and even the rear belt holes. Everything looks nice. Here's where I was measuring the front. It's kind of hard to see down there, but everything's nice and in line. And here's a look from the driver's side. You can see the seat backs are nice and parallel. Got them in there really nice and even. It's worth taking all that time to get them just right. Looking great. So like I mentioned, next I'm going to want to go ahead and set up the brackets to hold the rear of the seats. It's something NHRA requires, as well as pretty much all the other sanctioning bodies. So we'll check that out. All right, so now that the seat bottoms are bolted into the car, it's time to go ahead and start working on fastening the backs to the cage. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm just working on fine-tuning these main hoop plane funny car bars. And what I need to do, I already had them basically cut and fit, but I'm working on centering everything up with the seat in its final location. And once I get all of these fit, next what I'll have to do is the shoulder belts come through the seat, and they're actually going to wrap on a tube that goes here that these two bars support, and then there's a couple more that are on either side of that tube running to the tube over there and this main hoop. So I just need to get all of this final fitted up, nice and centered, nice and square, and then it'll be time to mount the back of the seat using a cool part that's actually adjustable and mounts really nicely to the back of the seat and to that harness bar that's going to run across there. All right, so just a little update, working on these funny car bars still. I've got everything all fitted up as far as these vertical bars, 44 and 45. And then this curved one, I've got it nice and fit up as well. And now I'm just working on making the horizontal ones, 46, 47, and 48 in the SFI book. I actually have them sitting down here. These will slide up to belt height. So they're just sitting down there. I was making sure they fit between the bars properly. And also, these arrived from Scram Speed. So these guys make this kit, and this little piece here is pretty nice. It actually, let me show you, it actually fits really nicely onto the Kirkey seat, kind of onto that bead, that ridge there. And then this tube travels backwards and is captured by that, and then this will clamp onto the harness bar. It goes right here. Y'all see that in a sec. I'm going to mount this up once everything's welded in. But nice hardware, nice little kit. What I'm about to do right now is make this piece that goes here, and it's going to be pretty complicated because it has to notch on all these tubes. Dang, this notch is super crazy. Check out the back side of that. But got it aiming at that tube, which is tilted kind of out of the way, while I notch this side. Looks nice and level. That is just crazy. Anyway, I'm going to put this tube back in place and then kind of measure to this tape mark. Go ahead and notch this to go to that, and we'll fit it up and I'll show you all how it looks. Alright, so this tube fits in there pretty well. This bar, the ends of this bar are not slid all the way towards the main hoop here. Not quite all the way, and so I'm just kind of looking. You can see this thing's got a little bit of wiggle. So it's close, but just needs a little bit of clearance. And I'm thinking just right under there. So I'm going to polish that up and we'll fit it up again. Alright, got it all notched up and fitted in. Had to tape this side so it didn't fall out, but that notch is looking really nice. Also, these tape marks are at the level it needs to be. And comparing it to that rear hoop back there, you can tell it's pretty nice and level. There'll be a little bit of fine tuning to do, but the top's slid over and tight, and the bottom is pretty much at the line, but I think I'm going to actually need to just polish this up a little more to get that over, but I'm about to measure that. Alright, and that's looking really nice now. Actually messed with that notch. It needed to be straightened just a touch. This is all looking really good. Got the tubes back out, and I cleaned this spot all up real nicely. Wiped it down with acetone, and I'm ready to go ahead and weld this rear hoop and door bar onto the main hoop here. I just need to weld basically under where that tube sits, just so that I don't have incomplete welds in there. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. All right, cool. So gonna let those cool down. They're looking really nice though. Turned out pretty good. Kind of a weird welding position, but not too bad. So once those cool, I'm gonna start positioning all the funny car bars and belt bar and all that stuff in there. So we'll check that out next. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and weld this other side too. Eventually this will be getting a harness bar also. for the passenger side racing harness that the owner wants in the car. So that tube's going to sit on here just the same as that one, just kind of in mirror image. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and weld this up, and what that'll also do is just kind of ensure that everything's still symmetrical. Anytime you weld to the side of a tube, it tends to kind of bend it and pull it in that direction. So I just want to make sure everything's loaded up the same, and I'm going to go ahead and run a couple beads. Alright, so I've been working on cleaning up and polishing all these tubes up, wiping them down with acetone and everything. See how nice and clean they all are. And now the next thing I need to do is go ahead and poke all of the gas expansion holes in the tube so I can weld them together and not worry about the welds blowing out when I finish them later. So let's go ahead and check that out next. Alright, so now that I've poked the holes in the actual pieces themselves, I need to go ahead and put gas expansion holes into this number 15 cross member and the number 10 main hoop where these tubes land. Alright, so I went ahead and I mocked all those tubes up, and so I was able to mark on the main hoop where I need to drill gas holes for the tops. So let's go ahead and do that next. Alright, just one more to drill. It's this one right here. Alright, cool, looking good. Now let's go ahead and start positioning the tubes into place. I've started to set up a couple of these tubes, and I'm just going to go ahead. I want to secure these and kind of work my way across more or less. You can probably also notice that I've marked these tubes for that harness bar that's in 3 pieces so that it's level all the way across. Here's the next bar over, just to kind of show you. I've measured this out and gone ahead and just marked that height to make it easier to level everything out. But everything's all cleaned up and ready to go, so let's start tacking these tubes in. Alright, cool. So now that I've got all of this mocked up, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to start by tacking this tube in. Reason being, I need to weld this to the main hoop on top of where this particular tube welds to the main hoop, because I need to complete that weld that this laps under. And then once I tack this in place, I'm going to pull these two tubes out of alignment so that I can knock this one sideways and pull everything out. Go ahead, weld the top, and then we'll stick everything back in. Alright, cool, this thing's tacked in, but I want to go ahead and add a couple more tacks using filler rod just to make sure it's not going to go anywhere while I'm welding the top. Alright, so this one's in here. Let's go ahead and pull its neighbor out. Perfect. Alright, now it's time to weld this one up. Alright, cool. Got that all welded up. Looking good. Let's see if this guy's gonna fit. It looks like it just fits over that weld. Nice. I'll be able to tell putting this in there. And that looks great. Cool. So I'm gonna set all these up and then go ahead and tack them all in. Alright, that looks super. Cool. Just going to go ahead and check out the angles and make sure everything's nice and square. It's also worth taking a look at it from afar just to make sure it looks nice and even and straight up and down. I want to make sure this slides evenly up and down the tube. Alright, that's looking great. Let's go ahead and tack it in. That's looking awesome. And one more measurement I want to take. Perfect. Time to keep on tacking. Alright, let's start welding the crossbars in. Alright, sweet, and they're in. Looking nice and level. I think I'm going to go ahead and give them all extra tack with some filler rod, and we'll check out the next step. Alright, looking awesome. Alright, I want to give you all a look around this thing. You can kind of see how I was comparing it with that rear hoop there, and maybe you can see the dash bar, but it all looks real nice and even. And the other thing is just looking down, kind of that reflection in the tubing. If you look down it just lines up right across this plane of the top of this rear hoop here. Everything's nice and straight. It's only got 2 tacks per end, so if I really wanted to tweak it a little bit I could, but it's nice. And that's going to be really sweet. So I'm going to go ahead, get the seat in here, and then we'll stick that nifty back brace in there. Check that out in a sec. I bolted the seat in, got the bottom all bolted in, and I just wanted to show you real quick just how much tape it takes to position these things. No, I wanted to show you, if you kind of look, so the center of the seat kind of centers up with this anti-roll bar here, that link, or the arm on the end, and if you can see how the belt openings there with that rubberized perimeter line up right between those 2 tubes. These are number 44 and 45 in the SFI book, but you can see how everything lines up. And this, I measured this to the owner of the car's shoulders. I'm planning to wrap the belt on these tubes, so it'll be a little higher than center. It'll come right to the shoulders, and it'll lean down at less than 10 degrees, and it'll be under level. So that's the range they want you to be in. You never want it going drastically down, because in an impact like at the front of the car, it'll compress the driver's spine and stuff, and you don't want that. So that's how they recommend it. You can see how nice and straight those look. It's pretty cool. But now I'm just going to go ahead, now that I've got the seat in, I'm going to go ahead and install this, and we'll check it out when I have it in. Alright, cool. So I've got that seat back support in there by Scram Speed, and it works really sweet in this car. So it fits on the seat right under the Kirkey logo there. So it kind of covers up part of the sticker, but you can still read it, so that's cool. I guess you could always peel this off and put another one on or whatever, but I think I like it up here above the weld. It just lines up really nicely. Looks like it's going to be strong, and it's also in the area of this back plate where a couple bolts I think would be really strong going through both levels. It comes with some hex head bolts. I might consider opting for like a Allen head bolt if we can feel this through the cover. But they're, you know, obviously I'll put the nut behind the seat through the on the back of the mounting tab here, but we'll check that out in the covers on it and just kind of see how it feels. Regardless, it looks like it's going to fit really sweet, and it's nice and adjustable. It's pretty cool. I went ahead and I got it all centered up, measured it, and looks really nice, all centered. So Just gonna poke a couple holes in the seat and go ahead and bolt it in the car. All right, so I'm in here behind the seat, kind of in the wheel tub area of the car, and I'm just gonna go ahead and mark these holes with the Sharpie. And kind of the beauty of this thing at this point is when I mount it up and drill these holes, it's still adjustable. So if I have to kind of move the seat just a little bit, you know, this is just clamped to the chassis here, to the seat belt bar, you know, and then this is slidable, you know, so if the seat ever needs to be adjustable, there's plenty of room there. But I'm going to take the seat over to the bench and go ahead and poke these holes. All right, cool. So I've got this seat set up on this piece of cardboard, just nice and secure, sitting on the floor like this. And I've gone ahead and brought this piece over here, and I'm just kind of making sure my marks are exactly where I need them. I'm going to take this pointed drift here and just go ahead and dimple the seat right exactly where I need to start my pilot hole. And then we're going to work our way through the drill sizes. Alright, we're still looking good. Move up to the next size. Alright, so these use 3/8 bolts, so now we're up to our final drill size of 3/8. What I'm going to go ahead and do is put the bracket on here with one bolt, push through, and go ahead and use that as a template to get that other one just perfect. Alright, and that looks awesome. Perfect. Final step is to give it a nice deep burr. Got these nice and cleaned up, and you can see how it goes through these nice double plates here. Should be good and strong and should keep the driver safe. Alright, so I've got the seat sitting back in the car, so I'm going to go ahead and put some bolts through the bottom to get it secured in place. Now I'll go ahead and put some nuts on those bolts to get everything secured tightly. Alright, now let's finally install that back brace. Gonna stick a couple bolts through the front. Then I'll go ahead and loosely secure those with some nuts. And last, I'll go ahead and put a bolt through the hole, attaching the tube and clevis to that bracket. And I'll secure that with the nut as well. Now this isn't the final installation in the car. This is going to have to come out and go back in several more times. If it was the final installation, I'd go ahead and tighten everything down, but I don't want to use these nylock nuts up yet. Well, I really hope you guys enjoyed looking into the final mounting process of these seats in the Nova, and hope you're looking forward to tuning in for more work on this car. I also got a lot of parts rolling in for the Cutlass, so that's going to be a fun project with lots of videos coming up for it as well. I always appreciate you guys watching, liking, subscribing, and I also like to hear from you guys in the comments, so feel free to leave a comment. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care and thanks for watching.